right, Safi and Marco, Dish on the Movies. And we are reviewing today our latest new release called Doctor Sleep. It is based on the book of the same name by Stephen King and is said to be the sequel to The Shining.
Well, it's a hybrid sequel. That's what they call it. It's a hybrid.
Remember Shelley Duvall and Jack Nicholson as the Torrances and their son Danny, who pedaled his way down the carpeted halls of the haunted Overlook Hotel in Colorado in the dead of winter? We know that Jack, his father, froze to death in the maze. Danny and his mom powered their way out of the place in a snowcat. In the sequel, Danny's mom has died of cancer, and he's in his 40s, I believe, barely able to make it through a day without getting drunk and patronizing a prostitute or two. His ghost mentor, Dick Halloran, tells him to get his act together when he wakes up next to a prostitute who's passed out on the bed. He grabs money from her purse, although it's really his money that she stole from him to buy cocaine. Then he sees a toddler emerge from the next room and carefully places him next to his mom. Sometime in between that event and moving to a new town, the ghost of the prostitute and her dead baby appear next to him, and it's not a pretty sight. He also gets into a bar fight, which was just as ugly. He decides he needs help, and after the move, Danny tells his new neighbor about his problems, which means, quote, I need to go to an AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, meeting, where they end up. Coincidentally, his new friend is an alcoholic, too. After attending this meeting, Danny finds a job at a hospice house where he can live in the attic. He also commandeers a children's train ride in a nearby park. After everything he's gone through, the job at the hospice doesn't bother him at all like maybe it would other people. At the house lives a special cat, who Danny discovers soon after arriving that it knows exactly when someone is going to die. Then the white and orange cat, who possesses the sweetest little face on the planet.
Yeah, I was sitting like 10 seats away from Safi because Safi likes to sit by the aisle and I like to sit in the middle, and I could hear 10 seats away her going like, oh, oh, it's a cute cat.
It had the
Every
sweetest
single
little
time.
smile. It had a smile on its face. It just had the sweetest face. Anyway, it was it was a well-trained cat, and they did a good job picking it. That's all I have to say.
Unfortunately, the cat gave a better performance than most of the actors in this film.
Okay, well, what the cat would do is all of a sudden it would just go trotting off into some room, and at first, Dan, is like, oh, you can't go in there, and it goes in there, and he finds him on the bed, and that is his signal that he knows the person's going to pass away, and he keeps him or her company. And so Danny figures that out, and when the cat makes his move and goes into a room, he goes in there too, and he sits down by the person and comforts the person, and the person actually knows. It's everybody who knows it. They all tell each other that when the cat comes in and sits on your bed, that you know you're going to pass away. I mean, everybody knows it. So the first time they show it, the guy knows that he's going to pass away. He says it. So this is how little Danny Torrance, who is now into his adulthood, earns his new nickname, Dr. Sleep. Meanwhile, in another part of the country, a group of roving monster people, and I don't know how else to call them, but that's what they are, who wear cool hats and look very California cult, are preying on people who have the shining. They kidnap and stab the victim slowly while breathing in a cloud of steam which emerges from their dying mouths until they're dead. Rose the Hat, a long haired, hat wearing hippie monster, senses the victims. Their latest target is a young boy who, after playing in a fantastic baseball game, sets off on a gravel road to his home. The cult grabs him and takes him away, which irritated me to no end. Because why would a kid his age be allowed to walk home alone? A kid who has to travel on a gravel road to the middle of Nowheresville, USA. And if the boy, which all they do is go after people who have a shining, so that means they have more senses about things that are happening or going to happen or did happen than anybody else. So if this boy, and I didn't even realize this at first, has such a strong shining, why didn't he sense the evil?
You're getting into spoilers, Safi.
Well, I can't help it. This part it's part of the book.
Are you going to analyze the whole movie for the non-spoiler review where people haven't even seen the movie?
Okay, they take him to a remote area and stab him and start inhaling his steam, which is like food for them, like a vampire who needs blood. I found it to be very disturbing and can't imagine someone who has had a child kidnapped and never returned could watch this movie without having a PTSD episode.
I thought it was kind of lame.
Well, you're not a parent. During this killing, a young girl named Opera, who lives a lot closer to Danny Torrance, picks up on the rueful murder of the young boy. Her shining is like a massive searchlight in comparison to Danny and anyone else who also possesses these special attributes. Abra has been communicating with Danny by sending him telepathic written hellos on a chalkboard in his attic room in the hospice. While he's working, she sends him a large message about baseball boys killing. The rest of the long story will answer the question,
You're
happened
gonna leave
to Danny Torrance?
You're gonna let people watch the rest of the story and not get spoiled too, Safi?
And meld together meld together his story with Abra and the murderous Cali cult. Abra and the murderous Cali cult, who travels the countryside murdering special people with the shining. Marco?
Oh. Okay. Well, I wasn't excited for this movie for two reasons, and both of those reasons were still proved right after I saw the movie. That's like as simple as a review I can give it. Is that I said two things. I said that this movie should not be a hybrid sequel. It should not be a sequel to Stanley Kubrick's Shining, and it should not be a sequel to Stephen King's Shining at the same time. It should be one or the other. And unfortunately, but I guess fortunately, because it shows that I know what I'm talking about, I guess that they should never have done that. Because they should never have made this a hybrid sequel, because it feels like they're insulting Stanley Kubrick's Shining one minute and then loving it the next. Like, this movie feels like they're trying to rewrite history, or rewrite Stanley Kubrick's movie and make it into what they wanted it to be, like to what it would have been nowadays with all these movies. I mean, I don't know who gave the memo that Stanley Kubrick is a good writer. I mean, Stephen King is a good writer because, like, it's the same thing that happened with It Chapter 2. People said, oh, God, they're not going to do the spider thing again where they make Pennywise into a spider like in the book. Oh, wait, they are because Stephen King's a really good writer. And then the next minute they'll be doing some sort of a tribute to Stanley Kubrick. But it won't feel like a tribute for certain reasons that I can't talk about in the non-spoiler review. And so that's one of the issues, one of the biggest issues with this movie. And the second issue is the colors. The colors in this movie and in the trailer, I predicted it that this would be a problem. The colors are all dulled down and put in a filter. They all look blue and green and just horrible, dull, boring colors. And I hated that, and it really took me out of the movie. Like, I think that if they made this movie colorful, then I would say that this movie is a lot better than what I'm gonna say that it's like now, because they made that choice. They said, oh, you know, it would be a good idea if we made this movie not colorful at all, if we made this movie really boring looking, and if we turn all the colors down so that you can't enjoy the color of the world and the characters and everything. If you don't remember, Stanley Kubrick's The Shining is like one of the most colorful movies in history. And on the flip side, this movie is like the opposite. It's just it's even more boring than black and white movies. Some of them. I'm not saying black and white movies are boring, but the ones that look really dull. And so, yeah, those are the two biggest flaws with this movie. I didn't like Ewan McGregor. I thought that he would have been really good, actually. Like, even though the trailer didn't really show him do anything special, but he didn't do anything good. I liked the little girl. I thought that she was probably the best person on the good person's side. I thought that the cult, I love the cult except for the blonde girl, and then I didn't think that the main villain was intimidating at all. She didn't intimidate me. And so yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say for now. Because now Safi has to say something. What do you think, Safi? Do you agree with all the stuff I said? Safi liked this movie. She thought that this movie was really good. Apparently.
Years ago, not too long ago, I read Dr. Sleep when I saw it on the grocery store shelf and was anxious to see how the movie would turn out. Unfortunately, it was like one of King's massive books. Kind of long, but that way on purpose, I guess, to give the story a good tell. The murder of the boy was in a book, so what can I say? Admit it? Nope. These people weren't even alive. They were like breath vampires who live on the breath of very special people, like I said before. And I didn't understand the boy walking home alone in this day and age. And I thought Ewan McGregor did a good job, and so did Kylie Curran. She was the little girl, but when we say little girl, she's like 13 years old or 14. And I'll just say during the movie there was a shootout, which is pretty exciting and weird and unusual because I don't think I've ever seen one of his movies or even read a book that had such a scene in the context of everything that happened in the book and the movie. Since the movie maker decided to meld together the Danny Torrance story with the murderous goings-on of this Cali cult, and the young girl, the movie does go on a little too long. And as far as the color, I just don't notice things like
You,
that.
you don't notice it even though it's right in front of you.
Well, I'm just you're. I look at a movie in a different way, maybe more of a
No,
singular way
that's
than you. I
because
was kind of comparing it to the book, and I have seen both Shinings. Now, that's that was kind of a problem for me because on the book, if you look on the cover, I mean, I don't know how many covers there are. The book I have is a paperback book, and on the cover it says a sequel to The Shining. Okay, and the thing is, what I wasn't even thinking about at first was that there were two Shinings. There's the original with Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall, and then there's this one that was on TV, which I kind of don't even get why they did it because well, I know why they probably did it. It had to do Stephen King and Stanley Kubrick had a problem with each other.
but
And so I guess that's why the movie
but
that was on TV was made to have more Stephen King's
well
likes about the story into the story than in Kubrick's
well
story.
it's funny because his TV movie, if he had just waited until now, like until all the way right now, and then done a faithful adaptation of the book, and then done a sequel to the movie, I think that people would have been much more on board with it, actually. Like, people would have really liked to see a faithful adaptation nowadays, and then they also could have enjoyed the sequel that didn't have anything to do with Kubrick's version. Because this movie, it also feels like it's trying to rewrite Kubrick's movie to what they want. And there are certain other things that have to do with Kubrick's movie and flashbacks in the beginning and stuff like that that was really irritating. There were some really good moments in this movie, some really good scenes. Like Safi spoiled one of them because she's not paying attention to what she's saying. And and so I'm not saying the movie's bad. It's just that it it's as bad as I thought it would be, and so that's not pleasing. It's overly long, which is bad when I say something is overly long because I say practically that every movie and TV show is too short. Like,
Yeah.
like people are so lazy. They end shows too early. They end movies too early. They didn't expand on this. This movie is way too long, and it doesn't feel like it should have been long. But the reason why it's long is what Safi said. They're doing the Stanley Kubrick movie, and they're doing the book adaptation, and you can't do two things at once. And as a result, I mean, this movie is a failure compared to what it could have gotten at the box office. Just so you know. And so yeah. What did you think about the villain, Safi? Did you think she was intimidating? Because personally, I thought that it would have been really cool if Carol Strucken was the villain, the tall one who dies. Oh wait, I just spoiled that. What?
Isn't Marco hilarious? He gets brags on me for doing some spoiler thing. I don't even say anything about who is in the shootout. And he gives names away and everything. Okay?
I said he should.
So unfair. Now he's laughing like it's really funny, but he about tears me apart for anything I say. Are we giving food ratings in this review?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll just go ahead. I give Dr. Sleep a new dessert. I watch a lot of baking shows just for fun, especially in the holidays. And I thought I'd make one up. So how about In fact, somebody may have made something like this, but it's very weird. Anyway, a chocolate cake built around a pumpkin chiffon pie with an iced sugar cookie of a Thanksgiving turkey is on top of the cake. There's a lot going on in that new dessert, and by that I mean the movie might have done a little editing to make it more streamlined and therefore not as long. It's okay for books to be long, but movies are more visual and able to tell a tale in less of a time than it takes to read the same in a several hundred-page book. So that's the end of that for me. Okay, how about you, Marco? Mr. Spoily Boy?
Okay. Well, I was trying to make a point that he should have been the main villain of the movie, and the reason why he couldn't be a villain is the reason that I spoiled, and so I I think that he could have been much more intimidating because they were trying to make it like kind of like a vampires type of group, and I think that he would have been perfect the way that he looks, how tall he is. He looks like someone from ancient times. Not in terms of like being old, but just like like he's the wise one of the group, and they played it off like he's wise.
He's the
And
grandpa, right? They call
yeah,
him
they call him Grandpa,
grandpa, yeah.
and he's just got this like intimidating, like he doesn't have any emotion into anything of what they do because
Well, I don't know. When they killed the boy, didn't he?
we're
I
not
thought
in
he said something or did
no
something.
no
I don't know.
and
Isn't this the same actor who played Lurch in
yeah,
the Addams Family? Remember that guy,
and
everybody?
and in
Lurch?
Twin Peaks,
And in Twin Peaks.
but
So to give you a more of a visual,
the
that's
reason
what we're talking
a
about.
lot of people will probably get upset because I said that the boy scene, the death scene of him was lame, and like yeah whatever, but I thought it was lame because of the actor playing the boy. I thought that they shouldn't have gotten such a well-known actor to play him. I thought that it was almost like a given that he was gonna die, and I thought that
Well, it's in the book, and he does.
I thought that like there was no reason to give him the part over any other little boy actor, and I kind of felt bad that like there's probably like hundreds and hundreds of little boys who would have wanted to play that part, and that his part was taken away for some reason. Their parts were, I mean, their auditions were probably like denied because he's more famous, and so it's kind of like in the Disaster Artist, where they have all those celebrity cameos at the beginning, and like they have nothing to do with the actual movie, but they're still there. Like it didn't feel necessary, but still. Okay, I'll give my food rating. This will probably upset people too. I give it a candy apple, but now here's the thing. The outside is a thick, delicious caramel, whatever you call it, caramel coating, with lots of salty nuts all over in the caramel, and on the inside is a rotten apple with worms in it. And the reason I say that is because this movie was disguising, and I came up with this review like this is one of the easiest reviews that I did the whole entire year, because it's like so obvious when it was made into a hybrid movie that what this would be. The inside is, and I gave this movie a chance too. Like I really gave it a chance. Like, ooh, wouldn't it be great if this was the best movie of the year? Because honestly, I would take a Great Shining sequel over any other movie this year. I would rather have seen this movie and then just skipped every other movie of the year if this was a good movie. That's how good this movie could have been. So that's why I'm giving it such a bad rating, because it could have been the best movie of the year. But what they did was they baited you, and in the trailers they did this too. They used his music, they used all the imagery from Kubrick, and they were like, "Ooh, this is gonna be a sequel to Kubrick's Shining." But then you get inside, and you have that rotten apple, and you have all those Stephen King cliches that we apparently love because we didn't learn anything in the 80s with all those shitty TV movies and all those crappy Stephen King adaptations that were horrible because they stuck so closely to his books. And so that's what this movie really felt like. It felt like the person making this movie didn't have a clue of what people actually wanted. He used people. He used people's liking of Kubrick's Shining to bait them into seeing this movie. But the other thing is that I don't feel that the people made this movie with a sinister motive. Like with Toy Story 4 and other movies this year that were made with very sinister, disgusting, evil motives. But with but with but with this movie, I felt like the people making it all were fans. They even said that. They said they watched The Shining over and over again, the Kubrick version, not the crappy Stephen King TV version. They watched it over and over again, and they loved it, and they really wanted to make this a great movie, but just they didn't know what to do. They had a bad idea. If they loved Kubrick's version so much, they should have just made a sequel to his movie, and they should have made it completely original. And I guarantee that it would have been incredible. Because there were some really great moments in this movie, and I'll emphasize that. There were some great moments, but then there were also some potentially great moments that got ruined by other things that were in play with this movie, such as casting. And I won't say anything more about that. But that's it.
Okay, everybody.
See you on spoiler review, right, Safi? Oh, well, this is kind
right. Marco.
Non-spoiler. This was the non-spoiler. So just wait until we get to the spoiler section to really analyze this movie and talk about Rose the Hat.
It is a weird.
That's
it's
definitely
a weird thing to call somebody.
That's a Stephen King type of name. And so
it was in the book too.
yeah, that's why. And so goodbye, everybody.
Bye.